Stephen Fenech from Tech Guide here, and some pretty big news here in Australia with Facebook banning all news sites from its platform. This is the result of a long and drawn out negotiation with the Australian government over the News Media Bargaining Code. Basically, what the Australian government would like Facebook to do is pay for the news links that appear on their platform. Google has also been involved in these talks, and they have agreed to terms and made agreements with news houses across Australia to pay to share their links on their platform. The events came to a head early today when Facebook suddenly just pulled the pin on all news sites, including Tech Guides, and none of these stories and the Facebook pages of these particular news houses were suddenly empty. You go to Tech Guide's Facebook page, it says no posts yet, but same deal with news.com.au, the Sydney Morning Herald, Sky News, all the major news outlets. But it went even further than that. There were a lot of community pages, government service pages that were also affected by this ban. So it wasn't just news sites today that were seen to be thrown off Facebook. There were some important pages that offer vital information for users, a lot of medical information, especially in the time of COVID, a lot of community information that people couldn't access. It put people in real danger. Now, this is only occurring in Australia, and if you try to share a Tech Guide story, for example, on the platform, it'll come up with an error. So it won't allow you to do it. Similarly, if I tried to post to my Facebook page, it just won't work. It won't go anywhere. And the other thing Facebook has done is that if people are sharing links to Australian sites, Australian news sites, even from other parts of the world, that won't work either. So Facebook, while in the middle of these negotiations, have suddenly made this move. They've gone nuclear. And the fallout, unfortunately, is affecting, there's going to be a lot of innocent victims. Now, I don't know where Facebook is going to draw the line in terms of what constitutes a news site. Personally, I've never asked Facebook for a cent. I actually pay money on Facebook to boost my posts, to get it in front of more people. I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money, as have other news outlets, retailers, a whole bunch of other companies and places that have invested in a social media platform like Facebook to build up the amount of people who like and follow your page, only to have something like this happen today. Suddenly, there's no page. The years you've put into building this page, this community, has suddenly and without warning been taken away from us. So where do we go from here? There a lot of people, there's already a bit of a backlash here in Australia about what Facebook has done. There's people already threatening to delete Facebook and to not use the platform anymore. Now, that's easier said than done. I rely on Facebook to bring readers to my website. And without that, my readership, the amount of people who visit my website is going to be reduced. So personally, I'd like to see the pages of these independent media sites like myself restored. The major companies that are involved in these negotiations, you can count them on one hand, the companies that are involved. They're the major news outlets that employ thousands of people, that produce great journalism, really good quality journalism, and that costs money. Now, to take you back a little further with a bit more background, the whole reason for this dispute is, over the years, advertising revenue for the major news outlets have dropped drastically. And at the same time, advertising dollars on Google and Facebook have increased. So they're basically taking most of the digital ad revenue away from news sites. Yet at the same time, they're linking to the stories. Google is offering it up in the search results. And they are profiting from that because the data collected by the people who click on these stories, who share these stories on Facebook, who like the stories on Facebook, that's vital data that they gather. Facebook has said, we are not like Google. You don't search for news on Facebook, you find news on Facebook. But what Facebook didn't tell you is that the news that you share, the news that you like, all of those little data points are collected. So yes, they don't pay those news houses, but having those links on the platform brings more people. They click on these links, they share these links, they like these links. And that's just paints a better picture of you for them and for their advertisers. I've always said on services like Google and Facebook, when you pay no money to use those services, the people who use those services are the product. We are the product. So all the data that we generate using these platforms, by reading news sites, by searching for news stories, we are generating data that's collected and tracked and sold. And this is an industry, the data industry, all these little points of information is valued at $229 billion US dollars. So don't tell me they're not making money. There's a lot of money in the data game. Now, Facebook is actually facing a battle on another front with Apple, and the next Apple iOS update will enable users to allow that have to give permission for apps like Facebook to collect their data, to track their data. So Facebook's worried that if people have the choice of not being tracked, then maybe a lot of people may take that option and choose to not have their data tracked and collected. So again, it just shows Facebook's motives here. They want to keep you engaged. They want to keep collecting you. They want to keep studying you. And that includes when you read news sites, when you share news sites. Now, the other big thing to consider here too is what happens now. With all these major news outlets that are producing excellent journalism, reliable information, fact check, the whole bit, very high quality journalism, if that's not on Facebook, what are we going to see? The big fear is that vacuum is going to be filled with fake news, misinformation, crackpots, conspiracy theories. So Facebook, which is the internet to a lot of people, this is their virtual town square where they gather, are suddenly denied reliable and accurate journalism, are now going to be flooded with all this crap. I've already seen ads and stories that are being they're ads that have been paid to be on the platform. There's scams. I've heard from my readers who clicked on an advertised product on Facebook, it turned out to be a scam, or the product was nothing like what it was shown on the site. So as long as Facebook's collecting the money and allowing these sorts of stories on the platform, it's okay. So if you're happy to pay to have your stories on there, then they'll let anything go, as we've seen with these scams and these items that are obviously not what they're cracked up to be. Now, in terms of news, the thing with news is they're not like a tradie or a retailer who sell a physical product or a service. News outlets create content. This is something that is shared, that is read by many people, and you can't touch or feel it because it's information, accurate information, and that costs money. Good journalism costs money to produce, to employ journalists, to film stories on radio, TV, websites, newspapers. These are trained journalists. That is their job, to produce this content, and that takes money. We've seen over the years, these newsrooms are shrinking. They're not growing. And the reason they're shrinking is because their ad revenues are slowly but surely being reduced year on year. But at the same time, Google and Facebook ad revenue is increasing. At the moment, between Google and Facebook, they control more than 70% of the ad dollars in the digital world. That's a lot of money. So for the Australian government to come along and say, listen, Google and Facebook, Google, you made $5 billion in Australia last year. Facebook, you made $32 billion globally in 2020. For them to turn around now, the government, and try to look after and foster Australian journalism, for them to be some sort of arrangement where a few cents are exchanged for each link, whatever the deal that they can come up with, surely there has to be some sort of middle ground that can be reached, rather than Facebook suddenly throwing all the toys out of the cot, taking their bat and ball home, and pulling this sort of stunt on Australians. This is mid-negotiation. The negotiations are still going on, and Facebook decided in the middle of those negotiations to pull the plug, to hold a gun to the Australian government's head during the middle of these negotiations. I think it's pretty poor form. It's affected a lot of people, myself included. And the Facebook platform, love it or hate it, there's a lot of people who use it. I want to get in front of those eyeballs. I want people to click on my stories from Facebook. Now, I'll share with you a little incident, just to illustrate how Facebook operates. And this has happened just recently. My Tech Guide Facebook page, I've got more than 13,000 followers on there. But recently, there was a fake Tech Guide page that was set up trying to lure my followers to this new site. It was trying to set up a scam competition site, and it used my image, so it had my picture on the top of the Facebook page, my logo, there was my photo, my name on this fake site. So what do? I did what I had to do. I reported the site to Facebook. And I also instructed my followers on Facebook to do the same thing. Now, the reasons I gave in the various reports was because they were imitating me. It was fraudulent. They were trying to attract people to this fake site to offer them this VIP competition. And they were also using my IP. They were using my likeness and tarnishing my brand. Well, do you know what Facebook said about that? Facebook said, this doesn't appear to be infringing the community standards. Facebook thought that this site, who's ripping off my logo, ripping off my likeness, and trying to rip off my followers, is doing nothing wrong. That's how Facebook operates. I'm really disappointed about that, as I am about this latest move for them to rip out news sites from their platform. I hope that there can be some kind of resolution in the near future, because it can't go on this way. Love them or hate them, I need Facebook to run my business, as do many other websites. So I'm hoping, for the sake of giving the major news sites a few dollars, I hope I'm not going to be one of the victims. Thanks for watching. You can read more about this ongoing saga at our website, techguide.com.au.